How do you make New York burn? What is better, Dash Infernus or Gun Infernus? How do you extend your burn damage forever? And why does the enemy Infernus 1v6 your team, but you can't seem to do any damage on him? This is the ultimate guide to Infernus. Infernus is a hard carry duelist DPS. He's one of the strongest 1v1 characters in the game, but can, with the right items, also focus on AoE damage in the late game. He benefits massively from spirit items, but also needs quite a few gun items to get online, with some green items sprinkled in to add the final touches. Alright, let's get right into it. As always, we're gonna go over the abilities of Infernus first. I'll explain how they work and how you can make them work, and then we'll go into how to play the character in lane, how to play the character in mid game, late game, and then later down the line go into more advanced techniques you can use to win more games on Infernus. Depending on when you watch this video, Infernus is an ST character right now. He's considered the best carry character in the game. When I say carry character, I mean characters that want a lot of farm but really benefit from a lot of farm. Infernus is the best of them all right now, arguably, other than Victor maybe. But yeah, let's get right into it. The ability that makes Infernus work, the ability that makes Infernus is called Afterburn, okay? This is our third ability. It's also what we're gonna skill first every single game, basically. And what this does is, every time we hit a bullet, we're gonna build up a burn effect. And once the burn effect is maxed out, the target is going to start burning and you're going to do spirit damage on them over time. And as long as you keep on shooting, the burn will continue and will extend, okay? So Infernus is really a damage over time character. Every single ability that he has otherwise also extend the burn, okay? So I want you to understand, once the burn is active, any sort of spirit damage you do out of your abilities will extend the burn. It's basically as simple as hitting the bullets. The thing is, headshots proc the burn almost twice as fast. It's a bit less than twice as fast. It got nerfed recently, but you really want to aim for the head if you have decent aim. And I'll say this now, before you start watching, Infernus is quite an aim-intensive character. If you are not super comfortable on aiming, this is probably not the character for you. So, Afterburn. On level 1, the burn effect, when we hit it on the enemy, reduces their outgoing spirit damage by 25%. It's a nice upgrade and will max out Afterburn anyways in this build that I'm using. On level 2, you extend the burn duration by 1 second. So it goes from 3-second burn to 4, which means you're going to do more damage, but it's also going to be easier to keep the burn active, right? Because what the enemy should do if they're burning is, they will try to get out of your line of sight. A lot of people ignore this mechanic and try to fight back, but that usually ends up with them dying, right? So this allows us to extend the burn, and later down the line we'll also get items that make the burn longer. The level 5 of Afterburn is a massive damage spike that is gonna increase the damage of the burn by 28. On base, this is crazy, right? On base right now, we do 12 damage a second, and suddenly we do 40, right? So it's a crazy, crazy power spike, and it's the ability we're gonna max first. In fact, we're not gonna level any other abilities or level up any other abilities before we max out Afterburn. Okay, next ability is Napalm. Basically, you want to think of it as an amplification to all your damage you deal on the enemy, okay? You use it, it's like a cone in front of you, and when it hits an enemy, it slows them, and they will take more damage, and the debuff lasts for 8 seconds. This also means if you have a burn on them active, and then you puke on them, the burn will get extended by you just applying Napalm, okay? And the way you want to treat this ability is basically, if you can hit it, you do it every time, okay? There's very few scenarios where you want to delay the burn, right? For example, if you keep on shooting and they're about to get around the corner, you can apply it late. But in practice, even in Infernus games, this is the incorrect thing to do. If you get a guaranteed Napalm application, it is more than worth using this even before you start the burn, right? So in lane, if you're fighting someone, start with this, and they're gonna be slowed. It's gonna be easier for you to apply your 3. And basically use this whenever it's up, whenever you can hit an enemy, is the TLDR of this ability. It sounds really simple, but it's really the best way to apply it. Level 1 is just an extra charge, and then the level 2 gives us lifesteal on the enemy we applied on, right? Which is really, really useful. The level 3 is also a massive power spike because it will amplify the damage from 20% extra to 40. And it will apply a debuff. It's going to be 33% healing reduction to the enemy, okay? And so this is a massive, massive debuff on the target you have it on. And it is absolutely essential that you hit this ability whenever you can, okay? Missing this is going to make the difference between you winning the fight and losing the fight. That's how big it is. It's such a massive debuff on the enemy, okay? And then we have Flame Dash. Flame Dash is an ability which just makes you run and leaves a flame trail behind you, okay? So the way this works is, if you hold W, you run faster, and you can just run wherever you want, in a straight line, in circles. This flame trail is going to do damage to the enemy, but more importantly, again, it's going to extend the burn that we have, right? So what we can do is we can apply the burn and then flame dash, and as long as this enemy is in the flame trail, it's going to reapply the burn over and over, right? So if they're in that burn for longer than a second or two, they're almost always dead, or at least very low HP, because they take a massive amount of amplified damage. There's quite a bit of tech you can do with this ability compared to the rest of his abilities, okay? Afterburn obviously is passive, right? It's just hitting bullets, and Napalm, there's not really any tricks to it other than knowing the range, right? It's pretty far. The animation doesn't look that far, but it's pretty far. But for Flame Dash, there's a bit of tech you can do, okay? So again, if you hold W, you're faster, okay? Which also means if you want to do something like farm creep camps, you don't have to hold this. If you, let's say, farm at your 3 camp and you apply the burn to 3 enemies, or the 3 creeps, you can Flame Dash and just like not press W and just go AD and keep the burn in the middle, which is going to make it a bit more efficient to keep the burn up on the enemy creeps, which is going to allow you to farm a bit faster, okay? What the enemy is going to do when you run is, either they're going to take high ground, right? They're going to try to get out of the Flame Dash, which you have to be ready for. So you don't want to use this if the enemy is really close to high ground. You only want to use it if you know you're going to at least apply like 1 stack of Flame Dash, right? If you hit them once. The other thing is, while you're in the dash, you can't parry, okay? Which means a lot of the time when you run through the enemy, they will try to melee you. You can cancel your Flame Dash early at any time, for me it's with spacebar, and then immediately parry. So a lot of the time what I do is I run into the enemy, and then right when I arrive, or right when I see them charge a melee, like a heavy melee for example, I immediately cancel and parry, and a lot of the time the enemy falls for it. Now this only works if the enemy, you know, knows how Flame Dash works, right? On lower level, I want to say people don't really punch you as much because they don't know that you can't parry in it. But as soon as the enemy knows they can punch, they will punch a lot of the time in almost every game. And you can kind of bait the fight that way, right? Where you start off and burn them, and then you run into them, and then, you know, you parry right away and get a counter parry, and then they're absolutely dead because they're going to be parried in the Flame Dash and they're going to be burning, and then it's a free kill for you, okay? Until you have this maxed out, the cooldown of this ability is very long, okay? In fact, it's like 38 seconds, okay? So there's a very long downtime, and this is your only tool until you buy certain items to get you out of trouble, okay? So a lot of the time, you need to learn to save this ability, especially if you don't have it maxed, and use it to get out, okay? I see a lot of Infernus players start with this ability where they go in and Flame Dash right away, and that's probably the worst thing you can do in a lot of situations, right? Because if you start the fight with the Flame Dash, yeah, they're taking that bit of damage from the Flame Dash itself, but they're not burning already, right? So the damage is going to be way lower than if you, for example, started the fight off with a burn, and then you use your 1 and then you dash them, right? Because at that point they're slowed and they take way more damage, because it's gonna, again, reapply this tick over and over, right? If you compare the numbers, it's not even close. So almost never use this ability to start the fight, okay? If you think you can catch someone when they're really low and the only way for you to catch them is to Flame Dash after them, you can. Just be mindful that for, you know, quite a bit of time after, you won't have this ability to escape, and then you're kind of a sitting duck, okay? So I want to say, start the fight off by burning them always, and then you can decide to like dash. And you can be kind of safe where you can weave in and out of the fight, right? Where you go in, dash in, reapply the burn, and then run away. And then they have to make the choice between running away or running through the flame trail to catch you, right? There is another build that is popular on Infernus, which is the Dash Infernus, where you get rapid recharge really early, and you max your dash early, and you just have a very low cooldown. Even then, the cooldown is about 8 seconds. So even then, if you overcommit with Flame Dash, you can still die, because you have no movement for the 8 seconds after. That being said, let's address this right now. I think Gun Infernus right now is by far stronger than Dash Infernus. Most of the pro players that play this character play gun, right? Zergy does. Zergy is super well known for his Infernus. And in general, I don't see a lot of dash Infernus, especially on high level. And I think you can do everything you want with dash Infernus better with gun. And you can still decide to go rapid recharge later to have more charges. It's like a viable option, right? For like a late game or like a mid game upgrade. Just don't go dash early. I don't think it's very good. It's definitely out of the meta right now. Flame Dash, we're gonna max third in my build because again, like eventually the cooldown, having the cooldown being way lower is very nice, right? So we're gonna max this third. I do get 1 value point in Flame Dash before I max my Napalm. So my build, just to address it right now, it's very simple. My build is actually just max Afterburn, 1 point in Flame Dash, max Napalm, max Flame Dash, and then max ult. So it's a very easy build to follow. The damage increase that Flame Dash gives on level 2 is nice, but it delays, you know, our main power spike of burn damage with Napalm and Afterburn, okay? Yeah, and then we haven't talked about the ult yet. The ult is actually really good, even though I just told you to not level it at all until the late game. It is a very strong ultimate, but the effects of the level ups are not that great, right? Like 35-second cooldown is nice. You can use 1 point if you want like more ults, but in reality, usually when you need the ult, you have it. And then the stun duration doesn't really matter in the radius, because if you dash after them and you ult, they will get stunned anyways. But let's get into the thing first. What does this actually do? This charges up, and after 2 seconds, you explode, okay? And anyone around you in the area is gonna get stunned. Again, cuts their spirit damage, so you can use this to extend your burn, right? Take them down. Where they're burning, and as soon as they explode, the burn is gonna go back to maximum, okay? Again, the reason this is not super useful to level up is half a second stun is not that much longer, and usually when they get stunned, when they get hit with the ult, they will probably be dead. The 5 points in the ultimate are not worth it at all. I didn't even know what this does until now, unironically. Like, yeah, it heals you. A super luxury late game, almost never useful compared to the other effects, right? The other effects are just crazy on level 5, like all of these. How do you use the ult correctly? You can use this to catch an enemy. So if you see an enemy run away and you want to catch them, you can initiate with a burn, flame dash, and a ult at the same time. Catch up to them, stun them, and then apply your burn, right? Or you can use this in the fight where you go in, you apply the burn, and then you dash after them, right? And make sure the stun hits. So you really, a lot of the time you want to proc ult in combination with the flame dash, just because this is going to allow you to stay on the enemy. Because when they hear this ult, right, it's really loud. You can hear it across the map, and it's a very big visual effect. When they hear this, they will try to get out of it. So a lot of the time you need to use flame dash to catch it. Now, if you're in melee range and you're already fighting, right, you can proc the ult and try to stay close to them with like dashes. And you can, if you can stay close enough, okay? Just be mindful that a lot of the time you want to have flame dash up when you use the ultimate. And the ultimate can also be used to stun mid-boss, okay? So what you do is, when the rejuve drops, there's a timing where you hit the stun right before the rejuve comes down from the sky. I'll show it to you here. So what you can do is you can press the ult at the right timing, right before the rejuve is about to touch the ground, basically 2 seconds before it's about to touch the ground. And if you time it correctly, there's going to be a stun in middle, so anyone contesting you trying to parry or trying to punch is going to get stunned. So Infernus ult is great for mid-boss securing a team to mid-boss, but also running in at the last second, popping this and stealing the mid-boss, okay? So you want to keep that in mind. Other things you can do with the ultimate around the map. You can stun walkers with it. So if you are chasing someone and they're running back to their walker, what you can do is you burn them, right? And you flame dash after them and run in with the ult. And if you time it correctly, it's gonna stun them under the walker, but also stun the walker itself, so you won't get walker stomped, okay? Which is like really, really good in certain scenarios. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's look at the laning of Infernus. So Infernus does decent damage early on in lane. He's not the greatest laner, but he's also not the worst. Basically what you want to do is you want to sit back and, as always, shove the wave. If you have not figured out how to play lane in general, I made a laning guide a while back. I'll link it in the comments below. But what you basically want to do is, as soon as a wave spawns, you want to apply the burn to as many creeps as possible, because as soon as you get the burn off, the creeps are going to die very fast, and you're going to be able to shove the wave into the enemy side very quickly. So as soon as a wave spawns, you get a burn on one, get a burn on the other, get a burn on the third, etc, etc, and then you still got to make sure to hit the souls, right, to get the last hit, to not get denied as much, right? So there's a lot micromanagement to do compared to other characters in the lane on Infernus, because you want to apply burns, but you also want to have enough bullets left to last hit the creeps, okay? Infernus's entire thing is that he applies burn with every bullet, right? So what we really need on this character is fire rate. You will not find a single build of Infernus that doesn't use some sort of fire rate, and we're running Rapid Round's first item simply for the reason that our bullets shoot faster now, which means we apply the burn faster, okay? And then after that, we go straight into Improved Spirit. And this is for two reasons. Reason number one, we get out of combat regen, which is really useful, right? It keeps us alive in lane. But reason number two, we add scaling to both our burn, right, our flame dash, and also our napalm. Mostly flame dash and after burn. Scale really, really well with spirit power. So we get early spirit power, and then I usually go for more defensive items, because at this point Infernus is already pretty dangerous in lane. Because if he gets a burn on someone and that person doesn't respect you and back out, right, you can extend the burn, flame dash into them, right, use napalm just like I explained, and get kills that way, okay? So you want to play passive, but as soon as an enemy peeks, if you think they're too far out of cover, an enemy hero, you can get the burn on the enemy hero and get good harassment damage in, right? Every burn you proc on the enemy is good harassment damage, and every time they burn, they have to back out. Otherwise, you know, you can go in, throw napalm at them, or flame dash them, and then they're gonna take a lot of damage, right? And that's the entire play style of Infernus in the lane, okay? As I explained, we're just leveling after burn. You can, if you want, get 2 points in flame dash if you want to be a bit more aggressive. But this, again, it delays your major power spike, which is the level 3 after burn, which level 3 after burn is gonna allow us to farm a lot faster and also deal a lot more damage with the burn, okay? And yeah, after that, basically all we're doing is getting some more regen. I'm running Spirit Shielding, Sprint Boots. There's nothing wrong with running something like extra health, or you can run something like Reactive Barrier instead if you want. But Sprint Boots give us out of combat regen. Spirit Shielding gives us out of combat regen. So if we're in lane and we're still kind of struggling, right, you will realize we're actually healing very fast as long as we're not shooting or being shot at, right? So it's a lot of passive regen that we get in lane. And then we have Extended Magazine. Spoilers, this is going to be the only magazine perk we'll get until later down the line, okay? You can upgrade this to Titanic Mag if you're not comfortable with sliding. We're going to slide a lot in this build. But you can also run Quicksave Reload earlier if you feel like you don't get enough damage in to proc the burn consistently, right? In reality, you should have enough bullets. 36 in the mag should be enough to get a burn off on someone and also extend the burn. One thing I should mention here is there is fall off to the burn, so you gotta keep in mind, if you're very far away, your burn applies slower and a lot slower, right? So you do want to be like kind of medium distance to the enemy to get the burn off in a reasonable amount of time. I see a lot of Infernus players make this mistake where they sit very far back and shoot, but then you do nothing, right? I just emptied an entire magazine, I didn't even get a single burn and did like 66 damage with an entire magazine, which is basically obviously nothing, right? So you want to keep mid-distance, around, I don't know what this is, I think it's around like 40 meters. Anything further than that, you can still extend the burn once they're burning, right? Just to keep the damage up. So it's fine to extend the burn, but you're not gonna apply the burn fast, is what I'm saying. Or try to keep mid-distance on Infernus, unless they're like really low, right? And then you chase after them. And again, use Flame Dash and Napalm. Okay, and then we go right into Toxic Bullets. And other builds run Tesla Bullets here, which I will mention now is fine. It's great. Tesla Bullets is really good right now because it upgrades into Capacitor. Capacitor is one of the best items in the game. It is crazy. It does insane damage on characters with high fire rate. Infernus has a high fire rate, and it has a crazy effect, right? Like Capacitor can remove all buffs in the game, right? It can remove something like Viscous Cube, etc. This is really a burn build, and we're gonna do a lot of damage with the burn in this build, okay? And this is what I like the best. This is what wins me games in Eternal 6. You can go for Capacitor / Tesla if you want to play a bit more passively, okay? If you go Tesla here, you have to understand you will have to farm more jungle, and you will have to farm for quite a bit longer until you're online. Okay, this build gets online very early, so you can fight very early. If you go Tesla, you gotta farm a bit longer, because Tesla is mostly a farming item early, and then once you get to capacitor, you're gonna start doing good damage, but it's obviously more expensive. So we go for toxic bullets here, and I think this is a super underrated item for Infernus. I think it's absolutely crazy, because toxic bullets is a build up per shot, right? And we already want to do that on Infernus anyway, so it's a no-brainer, because we're gonna apply both the toxic bullets and the burn at the same time, right? And just like the burn, toxic bullets reapply every time you hit a shot, right? So yeah, we go for toxic bullets here. Still good for farming, by the way. Like, it does add a good amount of damage to creeps. And then we go for Spirit Lifesteal, Enduring Speed, and Burst Fire. You can run Cultist if you want. Cultist is also fire rate. We need fire rate on this character. And Burst Fire is like the best fire rate for Infernus to apply the burn really fast. At this point, you apply the burn basically instantly if you have good aim. It's like so fast because you have such an increased fire rate. If you want to go more farm heavy, you can run Cultist, okay? So fire rate is your friend. And then all we need is Spirit. And there's a lot of great items for Infernus, so I'll go over all of them. Personally, I run Duration. Duration Extender and then Superior Duration. Why? Duration Extender is gonna make our Afterburn last for longer. Now it lasts for 4.88 seconds. And Superior Duration is gonna make it over 5, but also Superior Duration does work on Toxic Bullets. So Toxic Bullets are gonna go from 3 seconds to 3.8. Okay, and Toxic Bullets, by the way, scales with Spirit Power. And because we're getting so much Spirit Power in this build, once we get to Boundless, suddenly at 21k, let me level up to exactly 21k. Suddenly, we do like 2.8% bleed damage per second with the burn, right? And then we do a ridiculous amount of afterburn damage, and our Flame Dash does an insane amount of damage. So I'll just show you real quick at 21k how much damage you do. And this spot is like obviously really tanky, right? We apply our 1, we apply our burn, and at this point, it is a ridiculous amount of damage. I think it's the highest DPS once you get the burn off of any character in the game, other than like Spirit Nukers like Pocket or Mina that insta cast everything, right? This is a ridiculous amount of damage. Okay, and we really like Duration on this character because it extends everything we have, right? It extends our burn, but also our Flame Dash. It makes our Flame Dash last longer. It makes our Napalm last longer, and it makes our stun from the ult last longer. So it just works really well with the character. And then I usually go for Quicksilver Reload, because at this point, you know, we have all our damage. We're online, basically. And at this point, we just want to be able to shoot longer and live longer, right? And then I go down to Leech. And the reason Leech is king on this character and not Infuser, a lot of people ask me for Infuser. The reason Leech is king is Infernus still does a very good amount of gun damage, just with the gun, right? If you look at the orange numbers here on the right side, it is still a very good amount, especially early when you burst them, right? So you will just heal a lot more by having Leech on, rather than having Infuser for 6 seconds, which for the 6 seconds, if you have a burn, it's gonna heal you longer, but most fights last longer than 6 seconds, right? So Infuser is like, sorry, Leech is just like a massive power spike and survivability spike. And at this point, I just want to show this off. At this point, if you fight an enemy, right? If you apply a burn and then like a napalm, and then you just flame dash away or through them, you heal so much that it's gonna be really hard for the enemy to kill you, even if you're low, right? So we apply burn, apply this napalm, and just run away. And notice how much health we're getting back, right? It is a massive amount of healing at all times. In general, the reason we're running such an early Spirit Lifesteal, by the way, it just got buffed. It gives us Spirit Power, which is what we like. But you really need to try to get the burn off. Even if you're in a situation where you are getting ganked, let's say an enemy jumps you, it is essential to get the burn off. Because the burn is what's gonna get the enemy low, even if you don't shoot them. But more importantly, if you are getting ganked, it's also what keeps you alive, right? So if you are being ganked and someone jumps you, don't run away all the time. If you think you can get out and you're fine, you can use Flame Dash right away and get out. But a lot of the time, you kind of want to bait people into chasing you, right? So what you do is you burn them, right? They're gonna think they're gonna kill you because you're maybe like half HP. You burn them, throw a napalm at them, and then you run away. Because now the enemy is going to take massive amounts of damage and they have to make the choice between chasing you and extending the burn, which extends your healing, or they back out and they can't do anything. And at that point, if you realize they back out, you can also turn the fight around, right? Where you go in, shoot, burn, and you realize they're not chasing, you cancel, and you chase back and you keep the burn up, right? So you always want to keep that mid-distance to the enemy where they can't really catch up fully to you, but you have the burn on. As long as the burn is running on the enemy, even before leech, as long as the burn is on the enemy, you are winning the fight, unless you're like really low already, right? The things that kill Infernus is if tanks get melee range to them, right? If a Moen Krill grabs you, if an Abrams charges you, if a Billy gets you into his chain. Even then, if you have a burn on them, you will still live for a long time. But the things that kill Infernus is he's not super tanky, like he doesn't have a lot of HP in general, but he has a lot of healing, okay? And like Spirit Lifesteal is a must on this character. Every build runs it. Other things you can do, which a lot of people like, is something like Warpstone. I don't run it personally. You can. So what you can do is you can apply the burn and then go in aggressively with the flame dash and teleport right on top of them to immediately apply the flame dash, right? So you get the burn off and then you warp stone and you flame dash. Well, you flame dash and then you warp stone right away and it's gonna teleport you right on top of them and then they're gonna be in the fire and there's no way for them to avoid it, right? Which also means if the enemy jumps up to like a high ground, right? You can do something like apply the burn and then do something like flame dash and warp stone on top, right? Where suddenly there's like a flame trail on top. I know it doesn't show here, but if you do it properly, you can dash and then warp stone up to the high ground to extend the burn or slash catch them with the flame dash. Like that. Okay, I fucked it up again. So warp stone is a really good item on him. Also gives him bullet resist. I like just upgrading to escalating because escalating is a great item on him. It gives him more tankiness, and because you're gonna shoot your bullets, you're basically always gonna be on that 30 extra bullet resist, and we already have extended magazine, right? So we might as well upgrade to save a slot here. And yeah, once you get to this point, once you get to Boundless, right? Or once you are at like 20 to 25k in your build is where you are really scary, okay? In any build that is good, Zergi's or anyone else's, around that net worth, 20 to 25k, is where you're gonna start dealing a lot of damage. Other great items, because we're looking at Together's build right now, you can run Spirit Rend if you want to do more burn slash debuff, or something like Silence Wave, which is a crazy item right now. If the enemy has a lot of things that can get away from you with like escapes, like Mina, for example, Pocket, right? Silence Wave is also a great option because it also silences the enemy and applies more Spirit Shred, which means they're gonna take more Spirit damage from you. What I do is for Shred, after I run Leech, usually first, is where I go into Crippling Headshot. And Crippling Headshot is insane on this character. It is so good because it shreds both their bullet and their spirit resist, which means your bullets are gonna do more and all your burning is gonna do more. And because Infernus does both, it adds such a massive damage spike, okay? So Crippling Headshot is an amazing item on him. I should mention, this is a question that comes up quite a lot, so I'll address it here. What do you imbue Quicksave Reload? And I guess we can talk about this for every character. You always want to put Quicksave Reload and Mercurial Magnum later on the ability that has the longest, the shortest cooldown, because you want to spam it, right? You want to have the reload ready whenever you want to. So we put this on Napalm here, so we can use it multiple times a fight. There is no reason to put a Quicksave Reload on not the fastest ability on any character, right? On Wraith, it's the cards. On Infernus, it's this. On Mirage, it's the 3, where you can proc it anytime you want, basically, right? Okay, and then E-Shift is also crazy. E-Shift is a crazy item in general right now. It's super it's super overpowered. It gives us Spirit Resist and Spirit Power once we come out of the Shadow Realm. But the craziest part about it is, right, if you're in a fight and you're trying to dodge like a Wraithold or something, you can just dash and then E-Shift. And if you do it properly and you have the dash right past them, you're in E-Shift and you can like get out of this anytime you want, right? So you can do tech like, you fight, you're low health, right? You fight, you apply the burn, and then you dash and E-Shift and you get healing back and they can't kill you in 4 seconds. And suddenly you're back and you're full HP, right? So And then you come out and you have more movement speed, more spirit power, so even more burn damage and more spirit resist, right? So they think they can kill you, you're low, but no. Actually, you're completely fine because you have so much healing and now you're untargetable and then you come out of ult, right? You can take this even further where you go in, burn them, and then ult, E-shift, so they can't kill you, and then cancel it whenever, you know, the ult runs out. So yeah, E-shift works insanely well with his entire kit basically, right? It makes him... It's kind of like Victor where you keep on damaging the enemy, so you're healing, but you're untargetable. You're literally invincible for 4 seconds, right? The downside of E-shift should be that you can't do anything, but you can get out of it at any time. So even if you realize, like, you're in E-shift and you realize, wait, the burn is about to run out, right? You can cancel it early and reapply it. Something that used to be really popular back in the day is the Ricochet playstyle, which against certain comps is still great. Ricochet does work with your passive, right? Which means you can burn multiple people at the same time. So if you want to play a more backline safe oriented playstyle and the enemy feels like they clump up a lot, you buy Ricochet and you can just, you know, apply the burn to the entire enemy team. Now this is really, in my opinion, kind of team dependent, okay? Some enemy teams will not be clumped up, right? If the enemy has, like, let's say a Vindicta, a Wraith, and then like a Page, but then also they have like an Abrams and something else, right? Like the Abrams is gonna be in your face and the Vindicta is gonna be up in the sky and the Wraith is gonna be on the other side, right? So some certain team comps don't clump up. In general, the rule of thumb is close range characters clump up more, okay? Because close range characters need to get close to your team. So in a lot of team fights, there's gonna be a lot of close range characters clumped up together. Whereas a lot of long range characters don't clump up, right? So you have to understand Ricochet is like a trade-off item. Because yes, it's gonna make it so you deal damage to everyone. But if you don't get into a lot of situations where they're clumped up, you're kind of wasting a lot of money, right? Where you could get something that is more single target damage, like Crippling Headshot, like Mercurial Magnum, or something that makes you more survivable, right? And because there's so many good items for Infernus, you really have to buy what you think is best in the situation. So, almost always go for Leech, right? It's just a no-brainer, right? At this point, you have a lot of single target damage in most builds. It doesn't matter if you run Capacitor or something like Toxic Bullets. And then after, if you need more, if you feel like the enemy doesn't die fast enough, you go for a damage item, either Mercurial or Crippling or both, right? If you need to dodge more strong stuns, like Lash ult, like Wraith ult, right? Then E-shift is a great option, or Counter Spell if you can't afford E-shift, always a great option. Counter Spell is crazy, okay? And then if you need more, even more single target damage slash spirit resist, Escalating Exposure is actually not a bad choice. I tend to buy it as like a late game luxury upgrade, because it does apply over time, right? So it takes quite a while. And in reality, a lot of the time they're going to be dead before you get enough stacks to make it worth it. So this is kind of situational in that sense. And then something like Inhibitor and Ricochet works really well together because Inhibitor debuffs the entire enemy team and it's going to reduce the outgoing damage for the entire enemy team. So these two items you want to buy together. But you can also just go for an Inhibitor if there's one specific target on the enemy team that does a lot of damage. I had a Wraith game, or a game against a Wraith on Infernus the other day, where the Wraith was super farmed. He was by far the biggest net worth in the lobby, and he was like kind of server admin. And I died to him like multiple times, and then I bought Inhibitor, and I took 1v1 with Inhibitor, and it wasn't even close. It was an easy win, because I reduced his damage by 35%, right? So this is like the ultimate anti-carry item. If you have one really strong character on the enemy team that is a really big issue, you buy Inhibitor, okay? And Ricochet, as I explained, if you want it, if you feel like the enemy is clumping up a lot, you can buy this at any point after Leech, right? All these items you can buy at any point after Leech. And then there's other options like Juggernaut is a luxury late game upgrade because we have movement speed with Enduring. Or you can buy something like Unstop, again, if the enemy has Black Hole, right? If you really need to not get stunned. Or Spellbreaker if there's a lot of Spirit Nuke. Or Plated Armor if there's a lot of gun damage or slash on proc effects, okay? Spirit Resilience is also a great choice, because the one thing this build doesn't have, until now by the way, is any sort of Spirit Armor. You are pretty squishy, you're relying on you dealing damage to the enemy to heal, okay? You are squishy, you need to get the burns off, and you get your lifesteal from your leech and your one, right? And your burn. So if the enemy has a lot of spirit damage, Spirit Resilience, buying it kind of early, you can buy this at any point before or after this and be fine. Yeah. Bullet Resilience I buy less. There's not really a lot of bullet damage in the game. Now, big caveat, as I mentioned earlier, this version of the build is a bit harder to get into. Not harder, but you have to be aware that your ammo is pretty low, especially until you get Quicksilver Reload, right? Your ammo is pretty low. So what you want to do in this build is a lot of slide shooting, okay? So because we have Burst Fire, we can slide for a very long time, right? And because we have Enduring, we have a lot of movement speed, so we can extend the slide even longer. If you're struggling with sliding, you can buy Fleetfoot, right? In some games, the enemy has a lot of slows. Fleetfoot just makes it very easy to slide without even dashing, right? So you can buy Fleetfoot at any point just to keep up sliding and keep on applying your bullets without having to reload, okay? So the main things you have to learn if you want to get good at Infernus is your aim, right? You want to apply the burn as fast as possible. It is essential that you get the burn off fast. And then managing your ammo, like just using your slide in the right ways to extend the damage as long as possible. Now in reality, again, the character does ridiculous amounts of damage. So if you get a combo off, a lot of the time the enemy is going to be dead, okay? So if you get this off where you burn one and then dash, a lot of the time the enemy is going to be dead, even tanks, right? Because toxic bullets does percentage-based damage based on their HP. So I'll show this off real quick. I'll just give you let's give the enemy like an Abrams, okay? So we'll give the enemy Abrams what he would usually run, like a Life Strike. We'll give them a Spirit Snatch, but we'll be fair because we're not going to melee. I just want to show off the damage. We'll also give them Spirit Resilience, right? We'll give them Spirit Armor. And we'll make sure they are on the right level. We'll give them extra health. We'll just make them really tanky. And I just want to show you how much damage you actually do. So what you would do is, right, you see the Abrams coming. You immediately apply the burn. Again, Burst Fire is going to proc on the first bullet you shoot, right? So you apply the burn, one, and dash through them. And then we're going to do nothing. And as you can tell, right, you might barely live here because it's an Abrams, right? My point is, we didn't really shoot for a long time, but we dealt a ridiculous amount of damage, right? So if we take this any further, if you're in a realistic fight, I want to say, right, get the burn off, get the one, and then you ult them. And at that point, they're dead, right? They're dead. You don't even have to do anything anymore. Because the burn and the toxic bullets last for so long. Talked about it earlier, rapid recharge. If you want more dashes, once you level your Flame Dash to max, right, you can buy Rapid Recharge at any point, just to give you a really, really fast cooldown on the dash. So now dash is on a 10-second cooldown, but because you're dashing for like 3 seconds, it's basically a 7-second cooldown. So you can buy this at any time if you feel like you need more dashes. But again, in reality, you really don't wanna max Flame Dash second or even first, because Afterburn and Napalm as a combo do so much damage to the enemy, right? So it's gonna be pretty late in the game for you to make use of this. The playstyle of just like flame dashing just doesn't work as well right now. It might get changed. There might, you know, Infernus is probably gonna get nerfed in the next patch. But until then, gun is just more viable. You can buy Rapid Recharge at any point after you get Flame Dash to max, okay? And Rapid Recharge is actually like really nice luxury because you also get like a lot of Napalm stacks. So at this point you have like 4, which you don't really need, right? But it's nice. You can like apply this to multiple targets where you just, you know, keep on puking, keep on dealing damage. To finalize all of this, I just really want to reiterate the most important things on Infernus. And by the way, Chunk, I think we need, like I think very solid gameplay in the last 2 days of the last 2 days of gameplay. I have like full Infernus gameplay of today and then 2 days ago. So we should use a lot of in-game footage, is what I'm saying, to show the examples. Especially like the fights where I apply burn and then I run, right? That's the most important. So just to reiterate, the most important things for Infernus. Hit your bullets and make sure you apply the burn before anything else. The only time you don't want to burn the enemy is if you really are sure you can get out. There will be situations where you're like half health and you're scared and you're trying to get away and you don't apply the burn and then you will die. If you apply the burn in that situation, there is a good chance you turn the fight around, win the fight, or at least live, right? You want to think of this as giving you more survivability. Just making sure they're burning, and especially after you use napalm, will give you more survivability. So even if you think you can't kill the enemy, it is still better to apply the burn. It's really fast, right? You can apply the burn really fast. It is still better to apply the burn and then run away, okay? Because then you're forcing the enemy in uncomfortable situations. It's gonna be harder for them to kill you, but you're healing so much, right? It takes me like basically a millisecond or like less than a second to get 1,000 healing here, if you think about it, right? Enemy fights you or tries to catch you, burn, napalm, and you run. And look at the healing we're getting, right? And this especially works well if there's multiple enemies chasing you, because every enemy in your flame dash gives you more healing, right? And every enemy you burn gives you more healing. So Infernus is deceptive for the enemy, where they see you are half or below half and they think they can kill you. But because you have so much sustain and lifesteal, you can turn the fights around. You can play them like a fiddle. The longer the fight goes, as long as they're burning, the more likely you're gonna win on Infernus, right? Number one priority, get the burn, and then make the fight last as long as you want. As long as they're burning, you're winning, okay? As long as they're not burning, you're losing. That's Infernus. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. As always, there's a lot of things to consider on a character, especially when I want to like cover everything. So if there's anything I've missed you think that is really important, let me know in the comments. I do daily streams on Twitch and YouTube. If you haven't checked them out yet, they're not quite as educational, a bit more rage-inducing, but I play a lot of Infernus nowadays. So come by, say hi, check out how I play the character, or you know, go watch someone like Zergy that also does a really good Infernus to learn more. And yeah, I hope that was helpful. Keep on burn. Oh, that was cringe. I'm not saying that. Until next time, see you friends. Bye bye.